Great teams, you can talk about the great players, the great moments, the great games. You can talk about the memories and the emotions, or you can just sum it up in one simple sentence. It is the Steelers versus the Ravens. Thanks very much for being with us for the matchup. Presented by Shell Polymers alongside Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson, who of course you check out religiously, we know that, right? On The Drive every day, the highly rated show on the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can find it on all the different platforms. You can see the guys here. Dale, let's get started with you because it is Steelers-Ravens and it's just a different feel.
It really is, and you know, I've been at every one of these games since the first one in 1996, and somebody asked me on our message boards this week, what's your favorite Steelers-Ravens moment? And that's like choosing your favorite child.
Right.
There's just too many, and the whole rivalry is just something that you just enjoy and love and appreciate if you love football.
Yeah, and that's, by the way, too many games, not too many children, Dale. We want to get that straight. Matt, first place is on the line. I mean, this is and that's part of what makes this rivalry great. Obviously, we know the great players and all that, but it's just, it always seems to mean something.
100%, and it's always going to be a physical battle. It's almost always a one-score game. I mean, there's a lot of trends that aren't accidents about these teams. I think they both view the game in a very similar manner. I mean, Coach Tomlin often talks about AFC North football. Well, this is the epitome. And like you said, there's a lot on the line for this game.
Okay, so let's get to our matchup, Steelers offense against the Ravens defense. And let's begin with some of the physical nature, but it's not just the running game you want to look at when we look at the running backs against the interior linebackers for the Ravens. You just look at Najee Harris. Last 4 games, 2, he's been over 100 against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. The other 2, he was under 40. But it's more than that. It's the passing game as well that you want to look at here.
Yeah, 100%. So this Raven defense has stark trends. I mean, they've been exceptional against the run. They've been really poor against the pass. I mean, and both of them are the best and worst in the league, basically. And the linebackers are part of that. I mean, Roquan Smith's a great player, but their coverage starting from the linebackers into the secondary has been highly suspect. But they're really good against the run, and Roquan Smith, of course, is a quality player. You mentioned Harris. I think he's playing the best football of his life, which is saying a lot. Cordell Patterson's going to factor in to some degree. But I think Jaylen Warren is going to be featured a little bit more just because of his receiving skills. And
he's a guy that is, right now, looks like he's finally back at peak physical form after the injuries.
Yeah, and if you look at it, and I'm with Matt, I think you know, you can exploit these linebackers a little bit in coverage. Both Trenton Simpson and Roquan Smith allowing more than 10 yards per catch in their coverage, and that's not good for an inside linebacker. You would think that somewhere in that 5 to 8 yard range. They're both over 10 yards per catch, so you can get yardage and kind of some chunk yardage, dumping it off to the running backs against these guys.
Maybe sneak in a little Pat Fryer move too. They haven't been great against tight ends, maybe in those inside linebacker matchups.
They haven't been great against anybody in the pass game.
So Broderick Jones is your key matchup going against Kyle Van Noy, who was the AFC Defensive Player of the Month in September. And trying to keep Russell Wilson upright. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at it, Van Noy's their sack leader was 7. Now he missed practice on Wednesday with an illness, so we'll see how that plays out. But I would expect him to play, and he's a cagey veteran, a guy that's been around and seen a lot, done a lot in this league. And Broderick Jones is, again, he's still a young player. People forget that, but he's probably coming off of his best game of the year last week against Washington. So, can he carry that momentum over into this game against what's going to be a pretty interesting matchup?
According to PFF, one of 7 tackles in the league last week to not allow a pressure. On the other side, as we extend this, Matabike going against Dan Moore, that's going to be interesting too.
Yeah, Matabike will be on the interior, though. I mean, he's the more defensive tackle type, but I'm sure Moore will get some of them. I think he's their best D lineman for sure, and had a real breakout season last year. He's a high-quality player, too.
Yeah. The Ravens still scheme things up, to your point, Rob. They'll move guys around.
Yeah.
But it is Oweh that's going to be on the other side. I meant more than although Matabike just up the middle.
He's a quality player, too.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Pro Bowler a year ago with the 13 sacks.
But their pass rush is part of their pass defense issues.
Right. Yeah, that has not been very good, which is unusual when you think about the Baltimore Ravens. You expect it to be a little bit better. So my matchup is George Pickens against Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey is a multiple-time Pro Bowler. George Pickens under Russell Wilson has just been a different guy. He's averaging 92 yards per game as a receiver. He's got 2 touchdown receptions. That 92 yards per game with Russell Wilson at the quarterback position, and there's that phenomenal catch against Washington in the back of the end zone. But that would put him in the top 5 comfortably. He's a legitimate number 1 through 3 games with Russell Wilson at the quarterback position.
No doubt. I mean, he's a rare talent, and I don't think you can mention Pickens without talking about last week for the Ravens on Thursday Night Football against Jamar Chase. I mean, they had Higgins out of the lineup. Clearly, Chase is the guy you have to try to stop, and they didn't come close to stopping him.
Right,
Right.
Yeah, and if you look at that game in particular, Chase was such a big part of it. And then like the second, third, and fourth leading receivers for the Bengals were all running backs and tight ends. None of the other receivers really did much in that game, and yet somehow they were still able to make that happen. And a lot of it is kind of attacking Marcus Williams, their free safety down the field. Teams have a 158.3 passer rating when he's the closest guy in coverage. And
that's perfect.
158 is as good as you can get in the
Can't get any
NFL.
better.
So he's not been the player that he was earlier in his career. If you can kind of isolate him on Pickens, look out.
All right, it is time for our Yins Chat, and we have the perfect prize for you when you play this week, and that is because it's a connection with both the Steelers and the Ravens. It's an autographed Patrick Queen jersey. Yins Chat regular season challenges are back. You answer trivia and predictive questions. You compete against Steelers Nation for the chance to win the jersey signed by Patrick Queen. And remember to play every week for a chance to win new prizes and a chance at the grand prize. The key matchups when the Steelers are on defense, when the matchup presented by Shell Polymers resumes.
Hi folks, welcome to the Pittsburgh Steelers Hall of Honor Museum.
Now this is the best era.
I couldn't agree more. Those teams were unstoppable.
The teams were really good in the 90s.
Come on, you couldn't catch those teams of the 2000s. Literally.
The 70s were the best.
No way, the 2000s.
Whoa, stop fighting. I think every era was pretty sweet.
You said it, kid. I hope you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Wait, your T?
Todd Monken is in his second season as the Ravens offensive coordinator. In his first year, huge statistical jumps for the team in both yardage and points. In fact, they're up near the top in the league in both those categories, not leaving a lot of room for improvement, but whatever room for improvement there was, the Ravens have now accomplished under Monken in his second year. Thanks very much for being with us again for the matchup presented by Shell Polymers. And they are first in yardage by a long shot. They are first in points. Matt Williamson, and a lot of different personnel groupings, as Eric Clapton used to say. It's in the way that you use it. They got a lot of good guys and a lot of good different matchups that they can present to other teams.
100%. I think it's the best offense in the league. It's the most explosive offense in the league. Adding this Derrick Henry character has been pretty useful as well. But going back to last year with the Monken offense, as you mentioned, they'll throw so many different personnel groupings at you. And what's maybe most unique about what they do in that regard is Patrick Ricard. I mean, he's a 300-pound fullback who's basically a guard that they can line up anywhere you want. They've got multiple tight end packages. Now they've recently traded for Deontay Johnson. Might they slide into a little bit more 3-receiver set stuff because they're more capable? So that's a real challenge, just alignment and blocking angles and all the things they create with personnel.
Now, there are some places that the Steelers can hopefully exploit, Matt. And Dale, let's begin with you when we talk about the offensive line for the Ravens, in particular the right side of the offensive line against the left side of the Steelers' defense.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a weakness on their offense, it is their offensive line, and particularly the right tackle, Roger Rosengarten, is a rookie, and then you have Daniel Falele next to him at right guard, and those two guys are both new starters this year for them, and they were kind of trying to figure things out, mixing and matching guys around earlier in the year, and they've settled on this rotation with those two guys at those two spots. And I don't know if you know this, but T.J. Watt lines up on that side of the line.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, we also saw a little more Keanu Benton in the nickel defense there next to Cam Hayward on that side as well. So if the Steelers can take advantage of that and get after the quarterback a little bit here and get some penetration to stop the run, because you got to get Derrick Henry on the ground before he gets rolling, they can hold their own in this.
Well, that leads me to my key, because the best way to stop Zay Flowers is to not let him get the ball, right? Keep Lamar Jackson hemmed up, keep him in trouble. And when Zay Flowers, who's 5th in the league in receiving yards, gets the ball, that's where the fun starts, because about half of his yards are yards after catch. He's extremely difficult to bring down, hard enough to cover, but he just zips around the field. His quickness is amazing. And so trying to slow him down and limiting these yards after catch, which is potentially limiting what looks like a short gainer and then turns into one of those back-breaking long gainers.
Without question. I mean, Flowers, they have a lot of options, but he's the most explosive. He's certainly the most dangerous after the catch.
Yep. So now let's get to your key, because we have all these different matchups, one on the outside and certainly a little bit on the edge with TJ Watt. But just the front seven versus the front seven is the one that you want to look at. And part of that is containing Mark Andrews, who's suddenly come to life, right? The first 5 weeks of the season, no touchdown catches for him. Last 5 weeks, he's got 5 touchdowns, but it's everything. It's the option, it's the tight end, it's the running backs, it's everything.
They've got 10 different guys who have caught touchdown passes this year.
That's amazing.
I mean, that's a lot.
Right.
And only 11 guys have caught passes. So it's a situation where you just don't know where the ball is going. So you do have to control that front.
Without question. And obviously, we have to talk about Henry and Lamar a little bit, too.
For sure.
I mean, Henry's
Not Headley Lamar. Henry.
I mean, Derrick Henry is doing historic things and scores a touchdown every game, and that's like a given almost. Lamar is the reigning MVP and making a strong case for another. I actually think he's better this year, and Henry helps that equation quite a bit. So hemming him in, Lamar, is very important. They did a tremendous job with Jaden Daniels last week. He didn't have any scrambles in that Washington game. If you could keep that, somewhat under wraps with Lamar, that would go a long way. As Dale mentioned with Henry, you got to try to hit him before he gets rolling, because once he gets up to full speed, people start making business decisions. I'm not suggesting the Steelers wouldn't, but the defensive backs don't like tackling him. So the whole front seven is going to be greatly challenged in this game.
Yeah, and to your point, Matt, the Steelers have only allowed 61 rushing yards to opposing quarterbacks this season. That's the second fewest in the league. That's going to be tested in a big way in this game against Lamar Jackson.
It's just hard to take away all of their weapons, as we've seen, which is why they lead the league in yardage and points, because they have so many different weapons and guys that are not only can they utilize different personnel, but that personnel within the utilization is just top notch.
It really
when
is.
you talk about the players that they have.
Yeah, and I do think Lamar and the whole group are much more comfortable running this style of offense in their second year with Monken. We had some concerns about their offensive line early in the season, and the right side's still not perfect, but they've pieced that together to be good enough, and the guys that touch the football are tremendous.
And Linderbaum's a terrific center for them offensively, and you almost feel like when a team's running an option, boy, you better be able to control those gaps around the center position, between the center and the guard, maybe even the guard and the tackle as well, or you're in for a long day.
Oh, absolutely. And this team will, if they can start running the football, you're in trouble, because they're going to gash you, and it's going to happen.
It's going to be so much fun.
Oh, great.
It's the
Steelers, Ravens week.
It's the Steelers and the Ravens.
How about this little nugget for you, Rob? So we're going to see 2 of the top 5 quarterbacks in terms of passer rating in NFL history on the same field together. We already saw it once this year with the Jets and Steelers. Now we're going to see it again this week with the Steelers and Ravens, and we'll get to see it again in a few weeks with the Steelers and Bengals.
Yeah, that is amazing. By the way, Lamar is on pace to have the greatest quarterback rating in NFL history.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And the Steelers will look to derail that a little bit coming up on Sunday with first place in the AFC North on the line when the Ravens visit the Steelers at Acrisure Stadium. Kickoff is scheduled for 1 p.m. For Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson, I'm Rob King. Thanks for watching this edition of The Matchup, presented by Shell Polymers.